Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio in Atlanta, Georgia. It's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by Kennesaw State University's Executive MBA program, the accelerated degree program for working professionals looking to advance their career and enhance their leadership skills. And now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, it's important to recognize our sponsor, Kennesaw State University's Executive MBA program. Without them, we couldn't be sharing these important stories. Today on Atlanta Business Radio, we have David Winkler with Docufree. Welcome.
Hi, Lee. Glad to be with you. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited to learn what you're up to. For those who aren't familiar, can you share a little bit about Docufree?
Absolutely. The Docufree is based in Alpharetta, and we've been in business here now for 25 plus years, employ approximately 500, give or take a few employees in the Alpharetta area, heavily involved with digitization of paper-based documents as well as processing electronic documents for a number of corporations, over 1,600 corporations across the United States. So mainly focused here on U.S. business. A lot of business in the Atlanta area, of course, the entire East Coast of the U.S.
And one of the areas you kind of focus in on is kind of the corporate mailroom. Could you share a little bit about, the importance of transforming that corporate mailroom? Because a lot of people probably take it for granted and don't put much thought into that part of the business.
Very, very true. So, most folks, I'm sure, are very familiar with, the challenges of, just working with paper-based information and the challenges, that it presents, the lack of efficiency for, your employees, partners, trading partners, let alone the implications it poses for information security and privacy and compliance. And as we all know, we still receive a lot of documents and paper-based information via the mail stream, whether it's coming through the U.S. Postal Service mail stream, or whether it's coming, via couriers, whether it's UPS, FedEx, et cetera. And we've been trying to deal with, and corporations are still struggling with, removing or reducing paper-based information, from their business processes for quite some time now. So the mailroom is where a lot of that paper enters, whether it's an invoice from a customer, whether it's a piece of legal correspondence related to your business, or whether it's insurance related, et cetera. As we all know, businesses run based on documents, are the backbone of business. So a lot of volume still comes in through a mailroom. If you're a larger enterprise, you most likely have a centralized mail type functions and perhaps even some distributed offices, right, that are also handling mail. So as we move, businesses from document-centric and how they deal to a more data-centric world, the importance of digitizing that mail stream and getting the information from those documents extracted and injected into the right line of business system that you use and support is really, really important. So the mailroom is a very important function to your company.
Now, can you give us an idea of the scope of the opportunity here? Like, what percentage of invoices or checks or physical invoices, physical checks are actually mailed back and forth or communicated that way rather than digitally?
Still, surprisingly, even in this day and age, a surprising number of documents still come in physically through the mail, especially if you're a highly regulated business, right? If you got to do mandatory mailings as part of your business offering, you're going to be most likely sending a version of that through email or electronically, but you're also going to be required to send through the mail, whether it's even a simple postcard or whether it's traditional number 10 envelope with with the contents in there. Various studies on this, but it's still anywhere from look at a process like AP invoicing as an example, you still got north of 50% of those are coming in through the mail stream physically.
I mean, I'm sure the listeners, especially the younger ones, are, they're really shocked by that number because most of their transactions are digital.
Yeah, it's surprising, right? Especially when you look at it. And a lot of people are familiar with accessing through mobile devices, whether it's your phone, your cell phone, or whether it's a tablet or even a laptop computer. You're doing a lot of things electronically, obviously, right? You can go on to a furniture store online and buy something, et cetera. But you look at the supply chain that supports that purchase, right? There's probably 2 or 3 businesses in the supply chain that are either mailing some type of document or they're printing it out physically. You'd be surprised. Multifunction printing devices, let alone standalone devices, copies of what you thought you did entirely 100% electronically are still being printed out. And I don't know if you've had the opportunity to buy a big ticket item, but let's just talk about buying a home or buying an automobile. You go into a dealership, you may think you're sitting there filling everything out online. Well, some dealers are very advanced. The reality is, again, that information is getting printed at somewhere along in that transaction, has to be captured, and data elements fed into ancillary subsystems along the line. So don't be fooled by the fact that you think you're doing it 100% online, that the entire supply chain is online, because it's not.
Now, for you, when you're working with your clients, is there a size where it becomes, the mailroom becomes an issue where it's like, this wasn't a big deal when we were this size, but now that we're this new size, this is becoming now a problem, where it was just something that we were, I guess, tolerating? We have clients from small to mid-sized clients, employee-wise. We've got running our digital mail service, less than 50 employees, all the way up to very large organizations, Fortune 500s, right, with, thousands and tens of thousands of employees. So there's not a sweet spot, right, that has developed that says, okay, you got to be a large organization to benefit from this. We're seeing in the legal industry, for example, law firms that are adopting this technology, and they are, they're not very large from an employee size perspective, but they're dealing with information and workers in particular in their office that are distributed, right? They're highly distributed, and the information is distributed. They're getting information physically through the mail, but they're also getting electronically. Feeds from court systems, as an example, from multiple jurisdictions, counties, and states. That all has to be pulled together and integrated into their case management application and fed in there. So legal is an industry that we're seeing a lot of traction in that doesn't have a big employee base. You look at transportation industry. We have a Fortune 500 client in the transportation space, as an example. And they literally shut down their corporate mailroom and reallocated those employees to other areas throughout their facility department. And now they rely 100% on our Docufree digital mail platform. And we're distributing their mail now digitally. Even that came into the Postal Service. They now look at their mail totally online, right? So we've essentially made their information as mobile as their workforce is. So there's not one size that's in particular. This technology scales very nicely to small to mid-size to very large environments. So what happens when, like you mentioned, that some of these industries are, 50% are still dealing with paper? How does it work when all of a sudden now you're working with one of the players in those industries and they're not dealing with paper? Can they still play nicely with the ones that are?
Yeah, that's what's really, really nice about what the advances in technology have given us, especially with artificial intelligence as well, is you now have the ability to seamlessly integrate your physical information with your electronic information and marry that up so that you can now present a unified view of the information, and you can leverage technology such as workflow to route and distribute that, have different constituents take action on the mail that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. I suppose in contrast with mail streams and mail of the olden days, still a lot of companies are doing this, but you might be a company that delivers pouch mail to distributed offices, and you might do interoffice mail. I don't know if you remember the old envelopes, right, with interoffice mail and routing. You route a piece of correspondence to somebody, stick it in their office envelope, and you can, track who they route it to, and you want them to take action on certain things. You can now do all that electronically, right? And all you need is an internet connection, which is the beautiful thing. And so it makes it really, really nice. I think a lot of organizations are, again, thought of digital mail in the past as, you just turn paper documents, scan them, OCR them, and store them. But the reality is digital mail of today in the modern era completely unifies that information to where you can now take action on it and from a workflow, and your task and queue management over mail, accountability, tracking features, insert critical or transactional mail into a line of business system, and have total chain of custody, right, from the moment of receipt. Those are things that the technology platform enables you to do in this modern era.
And it sounds like mail doesn't have to be this physical thing. It's really communication is at the heart of this, and you're trying to give as many people this transparent communication as quickly as possible.
Great point. It is all about communications, and the information exists in so many different file formats and structures and places. And most would think of the past, right, as you're physically mailing it. But now you can literally capture all this information. You can leverage technology to extrapolate key information, only certain elements or fields, or even such things as we're leveraging artificial intelligence, right, to redact certain information that came in from that mail stream. And let's say it's a release of information request from a healthcare perspective, and you need to redact the personally identifiable information on that physical document, as well as the PDF document that came in through a fax gateway. You can do that with digital mail, and you can now secure it, so only those with the authorization credentials to view it can view it. It's just incredible what the technology allows you to do, and how you can intelligently deliver mail like you've never been able to do in the mailroom of the past.
Now, from the people who are still doing it kind of the old way, what are some of the things that they're dealing with and just tolerating that they don't have to tolerate if maybe they were aware of this type of a service?
Well, we hear quite often some of the pain that organizations still have, right, is critical documents get lost in the mail, right? We're all familiar with that phrase, well, the check's in the mail, right? Checks get lost in the mail. And when checks get lost in the mail, right, that's revenue, right? It's money. So digitizing that information, right, and capturing not only who it's coming from and the amount and the microline and all the information about that, but then making sure that transaction gets deposited where it needs to go. You eliminate that risk or that pain when you have a digital mail platform. So, again, critical documents getting delayed or getting lost or left unsecured from a compliance standpoint. Those are some of the biggest pain points that we hear from customers who I'm not familiar with, digital mail per se, but how digital mail might be able to help them or benefit their business. Driving costs out and increasing accountability for the mail stream. When you look at your organization and how the world works nowadays, it is a new world of work out there, and legacy inbound mail processes just struggle keeping up with today's mobile workforce. You have people still, even though I know we're post-COVID pandemic per se, even though COVID's not gone, but a lot of people have returned to work, but they still have flexible work arrangements, or they're truly, mobile workers, right? They're traveling for business, etc. Digital mail is ideal for that problem. And how do you get that information, whether you're in an office for, 2 out of 5 days a week and you're working from home or hoteling the rest of the time? That's something that we're hearing as well, right? Is if you're frustrated with not only lost, misplaced mail, you don't have any level of tracking or accountability, no audit trail to your mail, and you have a distributed workforce that you need to deal with, these are all things that we hear from companies that are ideal for a digital mail platform.
Yeah, I would imagine, when you talk about it, it becomes obvious that this improves the speed to communication, which in turn improves the speed to action, which everybody is for. Like, no one wants us to be slower and take more time to do stuff that we can be doing faster. And this, to me, is a no-brainer when it comes to, the speed to make a decision, because you have the information in the hands of the people who need it in the form that they need it as quickly as possible.
Precisely. And you think about, from a customer engagement standpoint, right? Customers are critical to businesses, and how you engage them, how you fulfill them, the speed, as you pointed out, that you can do that, servicing them, growing your revenue, and reducing your exposure, right, of risk. And, the handling and distribution of individual pieces of mail, letters, orders, contracts, POs, et cetera, many times represent a very weak link between you and the customer in that whole chain, right? So adds significant time delays to look stuff up, to handle paper, paper management costs. They're all barriers to cycle time and speed. So the more you can collaborate, make decisions faster, more precise, eliminate the manual and duplication and physical logistics, the happier your customer's going to be. Back to your point, it's all about speed, throughput, accuracy, and it's all about reducing that weakest link between you and servicing your customer.
Now, is there a story you can share that maybe illustrates this? Maybe share, you obviously don't name the company, but share the challenge they had and when they engaged with Docufree, how they were able to get to a new level?
Absolutely. We have a very large personal injury. I think it's the largest personal injury law firm in the country, depending on a given week, right? But they dealt with numerous challenges of physical mail, not only the archives and things taking up precious real estate and space that they needed to expand to support, additional attorneys, et cetera, but they were dealing with high number of distributed offices, I think 60 plus downstream locations from their headquarters. They also dealt with multiple paralegals in turnover in that process as well. And so they were getting stuff lost, literally in the mail. They were spending a significant amount of money in overnighting things between their offices, or FedEx type expenses, et cetera. And they also had the issue of dealing with criminal court systems between multiple counties and other differing states. So physical mail stream was an issue, but their electronic mail that came in they would get stuff sent via emails with file attachments. They would get stuff sent in via facsimile. So this different information coming from multiple disparate sources. And they really struggled with that, right? And their costs were just difficult to control. And so they engaged us to help digitize that. We focused on the process first, followed by the technology enablement. And that really helped them get a really good handle on the baseline on what it was costing them to process the mail. And then once we said, hey, here's how we could intervene in this process and lean it out, so to speak, and make some tweaks to it, here's how we can, centralize the capture of the mail. The people that you had, before, they were doing their own scanning, but then having people manually key in information from, off the index level and other systems. We showed them how we can automate that, how we can extrapolate that, feed those ancillary systems directly. You could essentially eliminate that task, that step in the workflow, and, apply the automation intelligently, right, as you lean this process out. So they tell us today they don't know how they could operate without us, right, essentially. Now, fortunately for them, they were a client of ours, about a year and a half before COVID hit. And when COVID hit, they immediately went into, send people home, right, et cetera. They tell us they don't know how they could have done it right without this platform. So they've seen clearly the benefits. They continue to, acquire and grow in their business, and very, very happy with the result. So we've got other clients that, similar scenario where they've just been dealing and struggling with the amount of paper-based information and how they integrate it with the electronic information. And we've got, like I say, companies as small as, 5 employees on this platform. And then we also have a very large transportation distribution company, a Fortune 500 company, that literally shut down its corporate mailroom and has now gone entirely on a digital platform. And they absolutely love it. They love it, especially too. They're using it in the human resource area in HR. They're using it in their accounts payable function. So many different examples, which is really the nice thing about digital mail is the use cases across industries are, very common. Banking, financial services are using for account statements and account agreements, credit appraisals. We see healthcare organization using it for insurance application, insurance card, patient records, paying their invoices, everything from prescriptions, etc. We're seeing in the travel and hospitality, invoices, itineraries, reservation confirmations, manufacturing. Really key, right? Bill of materials, component catalogs, inventories, shipping tags, supplier lists, you name it, right? The use cases are very, very broad. So it's very applicable across multiple industry segments because mail is one of those horizontal aspects that, every business has to deal with it.
Now, David, if somebody wants to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with you or somebody on the team, what's the website? What's the best way to connect?
Go to Docufree.com, DOCUFREE.com. Our website has all the information you need. You can look at case studies on this. You can look at, information briefings, sheets. Very easy to, click and contact somebody, and we'll have one of our professional consulting executives talk to you. Would love to have a conversation with you. We've even done a webinar. I think there's a recorded webinar out there on that. But I would direct them to our website is probably the best place to go. A wealth of information out there on this offering and what it's capable of.
Well, David, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio.